This is the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 25. The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. But only 5 of them were wise enough to fill their lamps with oil, while the other 5 were foolish and forgot. So when the bridegroom was delayed, they laid down to rest until midnight, when they were roused by a shout, "The bridegroom is coming! Come out and welcome him." All the girls jumped and trimmed their lamps. Then the 5 who hadn't any oil begged the others to share with them, for their lamps were going empty. But the others replied, "We haven't enough. Go instead to the shops and buy some for yourselves." But while they were gone, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 returned, they stood outside calling, "Sir, open the door for us." But he called back, "Go away, it is too late." So stay awake and be prepared, for you do not know the date or moment of my return. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going into another country. He called together his servants and loaned them money to invest for him while he was gone. He gave a certain amount to one, and to another one, he also gave a certain amount. And to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities, and then left on his trip. The man who received the most money began immediately to buy and sell with it, and soon he got double the amount that was given to him. The second man, or the other man, who also got a certain amount, went right to work too, and he earned double that amount that he received. But the man who received only a little money dug a hole in the ground and hid the money for safekeeping. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to him to account for his money. The man who had the most money brought to him what he earned, and then his master praised him for good work. "You have been faithful in handling this small amount," he told him. "So now I will give you many more responsibilities. Begin the joyous tasks that I have assigned to you." Next came the second man, who had also received some money. "Sir, you've given me this money, and I have doubled it." "Good work," the master said. "You are a good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over this small amount, so now I will give you much more." The third man, with a little money, came and said, "Sir, I knew you were a hard man, and I was afraid you would rob me of what I earned. So I hid your money in the earth, and here is it. But the master said, you wicked man, you lazy slave, since you knew I would demand your profit, you should at least have put my money into the bank so I could have some interest. Take the money from me, the man, and give it to the man who I had given the most. For the man who uses well what he is given shall be given more, and he shall have an abundance. But from the man who is unfaithful, even what little responsibility he has shall be taken from him. And throw this usual servant out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. But when I, the Messiah, shall come in my glory, and all the angels with me, then I will sit upon my throne of glory, and all the nations shall be gathered before me. And I will separate the people as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats, and place the sheep at my right hand and the goats at my left. Then I, the king, shall say to those at my right, come, blessed of my Father, into the kingdom prepared for you from the founding of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me water. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your homes. Naked, and you clothed me. Sick and in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Sir, when did we ever see you hungry and fed you, or thirsty and give you anything to drink, or a stranger and help you, or naked and clothe you? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And I, the king, will tell them, when you did it to these, my brothers, you were doing it to me. Then I would turn to those on my left and said, away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you wouldn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you wouldn't give me anything to drink. I was a stranger, and you refused me hospitality. I was naked, and you wouldn't clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you wouldn't visit me. Then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and not help you? And I will answer, when you refused to help the least of these, my brothers, you were refusing to bring help to me. And they shall go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life. This is the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 26. When Jesus had finished his talk with his disciples, he told them, as you know, the Passover celebration begins in 2 days, and I shall be betrayed and crucified. At that very moment, the chief priests and other Jewish officials were meeting at the residence of Caiaphas, the high priest, to discuss ways of capturing Jesus quickly and killing him. But not during the Passover celebration, they agreed, for there would surely be a riot. Jesus now proceeded to Bethany, to the home of Simon the leper. While he was eating, a woman came in with a bottle of a very expensive perfume and poured it over his head. The disciples were very angry. What a waste of good money, they said. Why She could have sold it for a fortune and given it to the poor. Jesus knew what they were thinking and said, "Why are you criticizing her? For she has done a good thing to me. You will always have the poor among you, but you won't always have me. She has poured this perfume on me to prepare my body for burial, and she will always be remembered for this deed." The story of what she did, the story of what she had done, will be told throughout the whole world, wherever the good news is preached. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 apostles, went to the chief priest and asked, "How much will you pay me to get Jesus into your hands?" And they gave him 30 silver coins. From that time on, Judas watched an opportunity to betray Jesus to them. On the first day of the Passover ceremonies, when bread made with yeast was purged from every Jewish home, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where shall we plan to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city and see Mr. So-and-so and so, and tell him, our master says, my time has come, and I will eat the Passover meal with my disciples at your house." So the disciples went as he told them and prepared the supper there. That evening, as he sat eating with the 12, he said, "One of you will betray me." Sorrow chilled their hearts, and each one asked, "Am I the one?" He replied, "It is the one I served first. For I must die, just as was prophesied. But woe to the man by whom I am but betrayed. Far better for that one if he had never been born." Judas too had asked him, "Rabbi, am I the one?" And Jesus had told him, "Yes." As they were eating, Jesus took a small loaf of bread, and he blessed it and broke it apart and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take it and eat it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks for it, and gave it to them and said, "Each one drink from it, for this is my blood, sealing the blood covenant. It is poured out to forgive the sins of multitude. Mark my words, I will not drink this wine again until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "Tonight you will all desert me, for it is written in the scriptures that God will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I had been brought back to life again, I will go to Galilee and meet you there." Peter declared, if everyone else deserts you, I won't." So Jesus told him, "The truth is this very night, before the cock crows at dawn, you will deny me 3 times. "I would die first," Peter insisted. And all the other disciples said the same thing. Then Jesus brought them to a garden grove, Gethsemane, and told them to sit down and to wait while he went ahead to pray. He took Peter with him, and Zebedee's 2 sons, James and John, and began to be filled with anguish and despair. Then he told them, "My soul is crushed with horror and sadness to the point of death. Stay here, stay and wake with me." He went forth a little and fell face down on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup be taken away from me. But I want your will, not mine. Then he returned to the 3 disciples and found them asleep. Peter, he called, couldn't you even stay awake with me 1 hour? Keep alert and pray. Otherwise, temptation will overpower you. For the spirit indeed is willing, but how weak the body is. Again he left and prayed, my Father, if this cup cannot go away until I drink it all, but your will be done. He returned to them again and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So he went back to prayer the 3rd time, saying the same things again. Then he came to the disciples and said, sleep on now and take a rest. But no, the time has come. I am betrayed into the hands of evil men. Up! Let's be going. Look, here comes the man who is betraying me. At that very moment, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived with a great crowd, armed with swords and clubs sent by the Jewish leaders. Judas had told them to arrest the man he greeted, for that would be the one they were after. So now Judas came straight to Jesus and said, hello, Master. He embraced him in a friendly fashion. Jesus said, my friend, go ahead and do what you have come for. Then the others grabbed him. One of the men with Jesus pulled out a sword and slashed off the ear of the high priest's servant. Put away your sword, Jesus told him. Those using swords will get killed. Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what is happening now? Then Jesus spoke to the crowd. Am I some dangerous criminal? He asked, that you had to arm yourself with swords and clubs before you could arrest me? I was with you teaching daily in the temple, and you didn't stop me then. But this is all happening to fulfill the words of the prophets as recorded in the scriptures. At that point, all the disciples deserted him and fled. Then the mob led him to the home of Caiaphas, the high priest, where all the Jewish leaders were gathering. Meanwhile, Peter was following far to the rear and came to the courtyard of the high priest's house and went in and sat with the soldiers and waited to see what was going to be done to Jesus. The chief priests, and in fact, the entire Jewish Supreme Court assembled there, and they looked for witnesses who could lie about Jesus in order to build a case against him that would result in a death sentence. But even though they found many who agreed to be false witnesses, these always contradicted each other. Finally, two men were found who declared, this man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, well, what about it? Did you say that or didn't you? But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, I demand in the name of the living God that you tell us whether you claim to be the Messiah, the Son of God. So Jesus said, I am. And in the future, you would see me, the Messiah, sitting at the right hand of God and returning on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore at his own clothing, shouting, blasphemy! What need have we for other witnesses? You have all heard him say it. What is your verdict? They shouted, death, death, death. Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, prophesy to us, your Messiah. Who struck you that time? Meanwhile, as Peter was sitting in the courtyard, a girl came over and said to him, you were with Jesus, for both of you are from Galilee. But Peter denied it loudly. I don't even know what you're talking about, he angrily declared. Later, out by the gate, another girl noticed him and said to those standing around, this man was with Jesus from Nazareth. Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. I don't even know the man, he said. But after a while, the men who had been standing there came over to him and said, we know you are one of these disciples, for we can tell by your Galilean accent. Peter began to curse and swear, I don't even know the man, he said. And immediately the cock crowed. Then people remembered what Jesus had said, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went away crying bitterly. This is the Gospel of Mark, chapter number 27. When it was morning, the chief priests and Jewish leaders met again to discuss how to induce the Roman government to sentence Jesus to death. Then they sent him in chains to Pilate, the Roman governor. About that time, Judas, who betrayed him, when he saw that Jesus had been condemned to death, changed his mind and deeply regretted what he had done, and he brought back the money to the chief priests and other Jewish leaders. I have sinned, he declared, for I have betrayed an innocent man. That's your problem, they retorted. Then he threw the money onto the floor of the temple and went out and hanged himself. The chief priests picked the money up. We can't put it in the collection, they said, since it's against our laws to accept money paid for murder. They talked it over and finally decided to buy a certain field where the clay was used for potters, and to make it into a cemetery for foreigners who died in Jerusalem. That is why the cemetery is still called the Field of Blood. This prophecy fulfilled the prophecy of Jeremiah, which says, they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price at which he was valued by the people of Israel, and purchased a field from the potters as the Lord directed me. Now Jesus was standing before Pilate, the Roman governor. Are you the Jews' Messiah? The governor asked him. Yes, he replied. But when the chief priests and other Jewish leaders made their many accusations against him, Jesus remained silent. Don't you hear what they are saying? Pilate demanded. But Jesus said nothing, much to the governor's surprise. Now the governor's custom was to release one Jewish prisoner each year during the Passover celebration. Anyone the people wanted. This year, there was a particularly notorious criminal in jail named Barabbas. And as the crowds gathered before Pilate's house that morning, he asked them, which shall I release to you, Barabbas or Jesus of your Messiah? For he knew very well that the Jewish leaders had arrested Jesus out of envy because of his popularity with the people. Just then, as he was presiding over the court, Pilate's wife sent him this message: "Leave that good man alone, for I had a terrible nightmare concerning him last night." Meanwhile, the chief priests and Jewish officials persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas' release and for Jesus' death. So when the governor asked again, "Which of these two shall I release to you?" the crowd shouted back and replied, "Barabbas! Barabbas!" "Then what shall I do with Jesus, your Messiah?" Pilate asked. And they shouted, "Crucify him!" "Why?" Pilate demanded. "What has he done wrong?" But they kept shouting, "Crucify! Crucify! Crucify! Crucify!" When Pilate saw that he wasn't getting anywhere and that a riot was developing, he sent for a bowl of water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this good man. The responsibility is yours." And the mob yelled back, "His blood be on us and our children." Then Pilate released Barabbas to them. And after he had whipped Jesus, he gave him to the Roman soldiers to take him away and crucify. But first they took him into the armory and called out the entire army. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and they made a crown from long thorns and put it on his head, and placed a stick in his right hand as a scepter, and knelt before him in mockery. "Hail, King of the Jews!" they yelled, and they spat on him and grabbed the stick and beat him on the head with it. After the mockery, they took up the robe and put his own garment on him again and took him out to crucify him. As they were on the way to the execution grounds, they came across a man from Cyrene in Africa. Simon was his name. And they forced him to carry Jesus' cross. Then they went out to an area known as Golgotha, that is Skull Hill, where the soldiers gave him drunk wine to drink. But when he had tasted it, he refused. After the crucifixion, the soldiers threw dice to divide up his clothes among themselves. Then they sat around and watched him as he hung there. And they put a sign above his head. "See, this is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 robbers were crucified there that morning, one on either side of him. And the people passing by hurled abuse, shaking their heads at him and say, "So, you can destroy the temple and build it again in 3 days, can you? Well, then, come on down from the cross if you are the Son of God." And the chief priests and Jewish leaders also mocked him. "He saved others," they scoffed, "but he can't save himself. So you are the King of Israel, are you? Come down from the cross and we'll believe you." He trusted God. Let God show his approval by delivering him. Didn't he say, "I'm the son of God's son"? And the robbers also threw the same in his teeth. That afternoon, the whole earth was covered with the darkness for 3 hours, from noon until 3 o'clock. About 3 o'clock, Jesus shouted, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, Why have you forsaken me?" Some of the bystanders misunderstood and thought he was calling for Elijah. One of them ran and filled the sponge with sour wine and put it on a stick and held it up for him to drink. But the rest said, "Leave him alone. Let's see whether Elijah would come to save him." Then Jesus shouted again, and he dismissed the spirit and died. And look, the curtain secluding the holiest place in the temple was split apart from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and rocks broke, and tombs opened, and many godly men and women who had died came back to life again. After Jesus' return, they left the cemetery and they went into Jerusalem and appeared to many people there. The soldiers at the crucifixion and their sergeant were terribly frightened by the earthquake and all that happened. They exclaimed, "Surely this was God's Son." And many women who had come down from Galilee with Jesus to care for them were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. When evening came, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, one of Jesus' followers, went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. And Pilate issued an order to release it to him. Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and placed it in his own new rock-hewn tomb, and rolled a great stone across the entrance as he left. But Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting nearby watching. The next day, at the close of the first day of the Passover ceremonies, the chief priests and Pharisees went to Pilate and told him, "Sir, that liar once said, 'After 3 days, I will come back to life again.' So we request an order from you sealing the tomb until the 3rd day to prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body and then telling everyone he came back to life. If that happens, we'll be far than we were at first. Use your own temple police," Pilate told them. "They can guard it safely enough." So they sealed the stone and posted guards to protect it from intrusion. This is the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 28. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to the tomb. Suddenly, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and rolled aside the stone and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was a brilliant white. The guards shook with fear when they saw him and fell into a dead faint. Then the angel spoke to the women. "Don't be frightened," he said. "I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified, but he is not here. He has come back to life again, just as he said he would. Come in and see where his body was lying. And now, go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead and that he is going to Galilee to meet them there." That is my message to them. The women ran from the tomb, badly frightened but also filled with joy, and rushed to find the disciples to give them the angel's message. And as they were running, suddenly Jesus was there in front of them. "Good morning," he said. And they fell to the ground before him, holding his feet, and worshiped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't be frightened. Go to my brothers. Go tell my brothers to leave at once for Galilee to meet me there." As the women were on their way into the city, some of the temple police who had been guarding the tomb went to the chief priests and told him what had happened. A meeting of all the Jewish leaders was called, and it was decided to bribe the police to say that they had been asleep when Jesus' disciples came during the night and stole his body. If the governor hears about it, the council promised, "We'll stand up for you and everything will be all right." So the police accepted the bribe and said what they were told to do. Their story spread wide among the Jews, and is still believed by them to this very day. Then the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had said that they would find him. There they met him and worshipped him, but some of them wasn't sure if it really was Jesus. He told his disciples, "I have been given authority in heaven and earth. Therefore, go and make disciples in all the nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And then teach these new disciples to obey all the commands that I have given you. And be sure of this, that I am with you always, even to the end of the world." This is the Gospel of Luke, from chapter number 1 to chapter number 28. Amen, amen, amen.